morning, everybody. We're going to go through some of the highlights of the 6.1 release. What we're going to start with is a review of Activity Center. That's going to be the new combined home for notes and tasks and emails and contacts and team members. We're going to work through that first. Then we're going to go through some policy items, flags, and some cancellation enhancements. You're going to look a little bit at loss control. Going to look at a few new improvements on the agency screen, and then look at a new feature available in the portal, and then we'll switch over, and Amy is going to go through collections and financing for us. Okay? So we'll go ahead and get started with Activity Center. Where we're starting from right now is I am just in a policy that is issued in Breeze. We're in Good Morning Cafe policy. So we're going to look at Activity Center from this entity, but Activity Center is available from multiple types of entities. The screens and the functionalities we're going to be looking at are the same screens and functionality that you would see whether you are accessing Activity Center from a claim or from an agency or from an application. It's all going to be the same, which is nice. That way you get a nice consistency amongst all of your different types of users as to how they operate in there. Okay, so instead of going over to your common features now, you're going to be accessing your notes and your tasks and your contacts from one convenient bar over here on the side. This is our Activity Center ribbon. You have a couple of buttons. The top one, which is where we're going to go in a minute, brings us into Activity Center as a whole. And you can access tasks, notes, contacts, all from there. That's where we'll be going. But just to explain the remainder of the buttons, this button right down here is for contacts. If you just wanted to go straight to your contacts, you could use that button. Or if you wanted to go straight to your team members, you can use your little multiple person button here. Or if you want to go to document management, you can click on your folded pieces of paper. Okay, so this is how you're going to get to Activity Center. We're going to go ahead and click on our little heartbeat to go in. And it's going to open in a new tab. And for this policy, I already created a few activities so you could see what it looks like once it's populated. So we're going to look at the layout of the screen and how you can filter it. And then we're also going to create some new records as well. All right, so right now I'm on my activity screen. This is going to be your notes, your tasks, and your emails. You have some filters right here that you can use to see only certain sections of that. So for example, if you only want to see your emails, you can click on this button to filter down to only emails. If you only want to see your notes, if you only want to see your tasks. Right now it's showing me all three. So just as an example, if I click on my tasks and give it a second, it's going to filter down so I took out my tasks, so I'm only seeing emails and notes. You can see I have a much shorter list over here. And it reminds me that I have filtered results. I can either manually click on this to include my tasks again, or I can just click on Clear Filter to remove my filters. You also have a funnel icon over here to do some advanced filtering for things like categories or date ranges to get a little bit fancier if you need to. Down the side here, this is showing me a quick look at all the activities I have. When I click on a particular activity, let's say we'll look at this note, then I see the details over here on this side of the screen that pertain to the activity I selected. You can also very quickly tell the types of activities from each other from the little icon here. Your check mark is a task, your little folded piece of paper is a note, and your envelope is an email. So those are pretty straightforward. So right now we're looking at this note. My details over here are telling me what the note says, what's the title, what's the category, what's the body of the note right here. I can also see who created it and when. I'm also reminded that it's tied to this policy, Good Morning Cafe, that we're looking at. And I can also link items to each other. As you can see, I could have attached documents tied to this note. I could have emails tied to this note, and I could also have tasks tied to this note. In this example, I don't. It's just a note. But you can now interlink these items together. And when we create a note, you're going to see a really good example of how that can be used. Your actions up here are going to be relevant to the type of activity you're in. So right now I'm in a note, so I have activities that pertain to a note. If I have the sufficient rights, I can edit my note, and if you hover over the button, it tells you what it can do. I can add a linked note. I can mark this as a critical note or a sensitive note, or I can print it. If I pull up a task, your options change a little bit so that they're pertinent to a task. This is the task. It's telling me the subject, the text of the note. Again, you can see that you can have associated notes or you can have emails associated to that task. I see when it's due. If it is overdue, I get a little red reminder over here to really make it obvious that it is overdue. And my actions change. I can edit the task. I can mark it as completed. I can reassign it, or I can escalate it. I can also look at the history of my task. When was it created? When did it have status changes? And who did those activities? And again, I can print it. Emails, I have similar actions that pertain to emails. I can go ahead and I can reply to the email. I can forward the email. I can go ahead and reassign this email if I need somebody else to address it. I can change the category, and as with all the activities so far, I can print them. All right, we're going to go ahead and create a new activity. You can do that right here from your drop-down, and it's going to ask you what type of activity you want to create. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create a note, just as an example. All right? It's going to bring up fields that are particular to that type of activity. So it's asking me, well, what's your category for your note? I'm going to say it's something about an audit. This follow-up field is really nice. This is how I can create a task very quickly to remind myself to follow up on whatever I'm documenting here. We'll go ahead and indicate a follow-up date. And what that's going to do, and we'll see in a minute, it's going to create a task for me with a due date of 8/25. I can create a subject, and we'll put in a body. All right, I can mark it as critical or sensitive. I could, if I wanted to, attach additional documents down here, but we'll go ahead and just create a basic note, and we're going to click on Create. Okay, so as you can see, here's the note we just created, and because I indicated a follow-up date, I also have a task, and you can see how they're interrelated. From the task, I can access my note, and from my note, I can also see I have a task. So you can see the linkage and the connection between the two. Okay, that's a basic introduction as to what you can do on the activities page. We'll go ahead and move on to the contacts page, which is right next door. This is showing me all the contacts for, in this case, the policy, such as the agent, the insured contact. From this page, again, I have filter options. I can create new contacts. I can edit my contacts. And this is also where I can grant my portal access. So, for example, here's my insured contact. She doesn't currently have portal access. If I wanted to grant portal access to her, I have an option to do so up here. If I click that button, it's the typical grant access screen that you are used to that's going to ask you for the username and whether or not you want to grant them user admin permissions. And then once a person has portal access, there will be a little blue brick over here that will say portal, so it will make it really obvious as to who has portal access and who doesn't. And then you will also have the pass-through options that you're already used to in prior versions so that you can sign into the portal as that user if you need to. On the Team tab, it's all your internal team members. In this case, since we're on a policy, it's people such as my underwriter, my CSR, if you have any marketing folks. If you were in a claim, it would be folks such as your claims adjuster. You can go ahead and assign different team members. You can reassign. You can edit typical activities tied to a team member. All right, so that's a quick overview for Activity Center. I'm going to go ahead and close this tab, and we're going to go back to our policy where we started and look at a few other policy-related items. First one we want to show you is your critical indicators are moved so that they're a little bit closer to the entity. So right here, I can see that I have a renewal quote and I have a late payment. These indicators used to be up here near the global search, and they were smaller, and they were only 2 to 3 letter abbreviations. They've now been moved, relocated here underneath the entity, so it's very clear to me which entity they're associated with, and you get the full word, so they kind of stand out a little bit more. You don't have to kind of guess what the abbreviations might stand for. They're very easy to understand, even if a user's never seen the screen before. Small change, but it does make it a little bit easier. Next I'm going to look at is a new feature on the cancellation processing screen. So I'm going to go over here on the side and click on cancellation to bring that screen up. The bottom part of the screen is the transaction screen you're used to, no changes there, but you have a couple of additional options now up here at the top. First thing that's new is the cancellation notice count, while not a new field, has been relocated to this area. Used to be on your policy information page. Now it's over here, which makes a little more sense. It's closer to the rest of your cancellation information. You also have additional options to exclude an account from cancellation processing. So if you have a key account that you don't want to get scooped up in normal non-pay cancellation processing without somebody clearing that first, you can put this page in edit mode, and you can exclude the account completely from cancellation processing, and if appropriate, you can also indicate a stop date. So if you only want to exclude them up until a certain date arrives, you can do that, or you can just exclude them entirely and not indicate a particular date. Or if you want to include some information as to maybe why you're excluding them from cancellation, or really anything about cancellations, you have that option available to you now. Okay, we are going to switch over to loss control now. So just kind of giving you an overview of a lot of the key changes. So I'm going to change tabs to a loss control event that I've already created. Okay, so we're switching tabs. Right now, I'm in a loss control visit event that I have created on the same policy. So I've already created it. Nothing changes in how you will create the event. But once you are in a loss control event, 2 neat new features. One, we have a questions page over here on the side. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what this does is it gives you the ability to create a question set. So you probably used to question sets from applications or portals, so you can customize that question set to have parent-child questions. You can use a variety of control types such as text boxes, drop-down lists, check boxes. You have lots of options there. And you can create a question set now to display on this questions page. So if you have a survey form that your loss control folks are taking out with them that has a standard set of questions on it, today, perhaps you're just attaching that Word document form to the loss control visit. If you would like to, you can actually create a question set that has the questions that would be on that form. And again, they can be dependent on each other. So if you say yes to the parent question, you can have a question beneath that that maybe only shows for a yes answer, only shows for a no answer. So there's a lot of customization you can do there. And you could, if you wanted to, have them actually record those answers within the screen on the loss control event itself. If you don't want to and you want to still attach the Word document, nothing has changed there, but this is just now an additional option for you. A nice advantage of this is the data is right there in the system. So in theory, if you wanted to query it, you could do that. Whereas before, if it's just a Word document that has information on that, you wouldn't have that as an option. Related to this, now that we have this question page, you can also create a corresponding document template that you can attach, download, fill out, complete it offline, and bring the information back into the questions. I'm going to kind of show you that. So what I'm going to do is from this loss control event, I'm going to go over to our documents page. On this documents page, I've already done a little bit of it. What I've done is I did create from template, and we have a template created that exactly matches up with the question set in this environment, and I attached that document, one right here, okay? What you can do is your loss control folks can basically complete their information offline. They can download, just like you download documents today, download the Word document, save it to their hard drive on their laptop. Go ahead, they've got their laptop out on the job site, they're not connected to the internet at all, they can pull up that Word document and they can complete it. And then when they come back into Breeze and have an internet connection again, and I've already done that, I've downloaded the Word document, I've put a few fields on it, and I've saved it to my desktop, so outside of Breeze. What they can do when they come back into the office, have an internet connection again, they can come into the loss control event, they can go to their cog, they can say, I want to upload that Word document that I created and that I filled out. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to browse to where I happened to save it. I'm going to save it. Give it a minute to think, and what it's going to do is it's going to populate the answers that I included back on my questions page. So I'm going to come here, I'm just going to refresh my page. Let it refresh. And I can see now I have information here. This pulled in from that Word document that I completed outside of the system. So this gives your folks who are working in the field a lot of flexibility to capture information when they're offline, and now they have an option to come back in when they are online again and just pull that information back in without having to redata enter it. So you get the offline option and the benefit of now having the data in a screen in the system where it's very easily accessible to anybody who's looking at the event, and also you could query off it. And these are just very generic examples of fields and questions. You would set this up particular to the information you capture on your loss control visits. And the important point will just be when you're setting it up, if you want to use it, that you closely coordinate your question set with your document template so that they all match up. All the information you're capturing has a place to land. Okay. I'm going to switch gears now, and we're going to look at some neat additions to the agency page. So I'm just going to close out a couple of the tabs that we're not using anymore. Okay. All right, now I am in an agency, just a made-up agency. So far it looks the same, what you're used to, but we've added a few new pages. One of the pages that we have added along the side is for commission information. This is an agency I just created, so I'm going to click on commissions. We're going to see a little bit of information. They haven't had a whole lot of activity. What this is showing you is your commission information. You used to be able to get to this information, but you had to go to the commission batch processing screen to see it. This is showing you that information as it pertains just to the agency branch I'm in. So if you have inquiries from an agency about commission transactions, you can just go right into the agency, go to this new commissions page, and see your information. You don't have to go and try to find the batch, and then within the batch, find the agency branch. You can just go right to the information very quickly from here. Another new page within an agency that we've introduced is an agency profile questions page. I'm going to go ahead and click on that now.
As well.
And this is a page, again, where we're leveraging that ability to create question sets again. So a lot of companies will have, and I'm sure you guys probably all do as well, a questionnaire that you send out to your agencies and update with maybe annually or biannually, just to get some basic information about your agency, maybe which agency management systems they use, how do they gather their leads, what other carriers do they do business with, so you have a good idea of who your competition might be. This is an example of where, again, you can create those questions customized to your questionnaires and what type of information you gather. This is just an example. Create a question set. Again, you've got a variety of controls to choose from, drop-down boxes, check boxes, text boxes, dates. And you can create the question set here and record that information directly on the screen if you want. And it's a page like any other, so you can go ahead and edit the information when you need to. And these are just some example questions. You would customize the question set to meet your needs. But that is another nice new feature And the last thing I want to show you on the agency screen is the ability, we have now added the ability to indicate the CSRs at the agency. So we'll just, but basically what this is going to show you is you have several options for, we call it the branch CSR, so as not to be confused with our other CSR field that may be using for an underwriting assistant.
That's what?
Information, and what this will let you do, our environment's just being a little slow here, so we'll let that catch up. It's going to let you indicate your CSRs for your agency, and you have the option to, though you don't have to, you can then associate those CSRs with an agent if you know that certain CSRs are closely tied to certain agents. And then, if you have tied your CSR to an agent, when you create an application, there we go. Let me scroll down for you just a little bit to show you where the new section is. Okay, here we go. Here's our branch CSR. So you can edit. I have two created here, fictional people, Charlotte and Hildy. For this agency, I added them. You can indicate typical contact information, titles, phone numbers, emails, fax numbers. Once you've added them, from the agent screen, where we have all your producers, you can, if you would like to, associate a branch CSR to that agent. So for our agent Franklin Hildebrand here, his CSR is Charlotte. And all I do is just editing the agent, and then I will, all of the CSRs I have established for my branch are available in the pick list. You don't have to associate them, but it's an option. And then anytime you are selecting an agent, such as when you're creating a new application, or if you're changing an agent, the branch CSR field is now right next to the agent field on those screens. And when you pick your agent, if he has an associated CSR, the CSR will default based on who is indicated here. If he doesn't have a CSR indicated here, you could manually select one from any of the CSRs set up for that agency branch, or you can leave it blank if you don't know who the CSR is or if they don't have one. So it's just another option, but it puts that contact information at your fingertips because you might be talking to the CSR potentially more often than the agent. So you can track all that information. Okay, what I'm going to do now is we're going to switch gears, and we are going to look at a new page that we have added to the agent portal. So what I am going to do is I am actually going to go to the contact page for this agency, and we're going to log into the portal as one of the agents. So we're going to go back up to Activity Center that we were just looking at. I want to go right to the contact page, so I'm going to click on the contact icon here. I could also, as we saw, click on the heart icon and then navigate to the contacts page. Either one would get me to the same place. So we're going to open up Activity Center for this agency. We're going to give it a sec. It's going to go to the contacts page, and here is that portal brick that I was mentioning. So you can quickly see who amongst these agents and branch CSRs currently has portal access. We are going to impersonate Ben. So I'm going to click on Ben, and I can see his information. And because he already has portal access, I have an option to impersonate him, which is the pass-through that you're used to today, just access from a slightly different spot on the screen. I'm going to say, yep, I want to be Ben. I'm going to click on the portal pass-through. It's going to ask me if I'm sure I want to be Ben, and I'm sure, so I'm going to click yes. And it's going to log us into the portal as an agent. Let that finish loading. The new page that is available, should you decide to make it visible through your existing area preference, portal preference, so it's controlled through that preference just like all the other pages. I'm going to click on it, and it's for renewal quotes. So this gives you the option, if you would like, to post renewal quotes out on your portal for agents to consume. This page only applies to agency, branch, agent users, insured users don't have access to this page. What drives a quote to show on this page is a combination of two things in Breeze. So you control when and if you want quotes posted on this page. In the existing Breeze renewal quote screens, if you have checked the available online checkbox, and you're familiar with that from application processing, and you have also marked the quote as released, so you need those two factors, available online check and also released. If you have both of those criteria met, then the quote can be displayed on this page. What the agent can do, as you can see, you've got two quotes that Ben has access to. He's got one quote for Good Morning Cafe. Tells you when it renews, what's the policy number. And I actually have two quotes shown here for Slater Drywall. So that's a little bit new. You can post on the renewal page multiple quotes for the same insured. That's something that we plan on adding to the application page at some point in the future, but we went ahead and made that available now for renewal quotes. As an agent, I can do a few things. If I click on my actions drop-down box, if I click on view renewal quote, it will download a copy of the quote for me, and I can look at it, save it, email it, whatever I'd like to do. I can also request a change. This is very, very similar to the request a change feature on policies, where I can write a description as the agent of what I would like changed. I can submit the request. I can even attach a file if I would like to. This will create a workflow task within Breeze to let the appropriate role know that Ben Grant has asked for a change to this quote, and here's what he said, and here are whatever documents he attached. The attachment of documents is optional. So it's very similar to that existing feature for policies. I'm going to click cancel. The other two options, I can bind it. This message here is controlled via a preference, so if you'd like slightly different wording, that's fine. You can adjust the wording, but it's basically telling the user you're going to be updating the status of the quote to bound, and it is going to generate a task to the user in Breeze so that they are aware that you did this and can take any further action, such as issuance or maybe following up for additional documents. And then the last option is the opposite of bind. I can go ahead as the agent and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to place this with you at renewal. The request non-renewal option lets the agent know that what they're basically doing is they're going to be updating the quote status to rejected or not taken, however, whatever label you use for that. This explanation on the screen, again, is controlled via preference, so you can change the wording around a little bit to suit your needs. They can input a description of why they're requesting a non-renewal, maybe which carrier they went to, the reason that they decided to change carriers, whatever information they'd like to include. If they'd like to, they can attach a document. So ideally, if they're going to cancel, they could attach the LPR right here, and hopefully you won't have to follow up for it if the agent is making it easy for you. We're going to go ahead and switch over now. I'm going to let Amy take the reins, and we're going to change topics to collections and finance. Yes. We have a couple of exciting features. Hello, everybody. Exciting features for additional means in which to capture premium. Unfortunately, sometimes we do have to navigate issues where an insured is having either difficulty paying or has just decided they're not going to make their payment. So in the event of one of those, we've come up with some new creative functionality. Let me get my bearings here. Can I just take, can I hijack one of these? Okay.
It's just not the joint detail.
Thank you. Okay, so for this scenario, I've selected two different insureds. Sadly, two different companies. Both are Florida snowmobile and snow gear companies. Shame on them for picking a snow company in the middle of Florida because they're not doing so well. So for the first scenario, we're going to use our snow gear guy here. Let's see, where's my, there we are. So Amy's floor, oh, that's not good. Bear with me one moment.
Oh, it's probably because
That's okay. Well, the whole music is gone, so I can think a little bit more clearly. All right, let's try this again. So Amy's Florida Snow Gear Company is not doing so hot these days, or actually quite the opposite. They're doing too hot and not selling any snow gear. So sad to say, they are late on their payments by about $43,000. What we're going to do here is I'm on the policy. You would go to View Transactions, and now we have a means for giving the insured a capability of financing out overdue bill installments, or perhaps there's an installment that hasn't been paid. They're having difficulty coming up with all of the money. In that event, you can finance that one installment as you so need to. You would go simply to the View Transactions screen, and there's a Finance button here. You would click the Finance button, and it would automatically pull in all of those installments that have yet to be paid. Here's where you get a little bit of control and design. You get to choose how long you want to go out for your finance date. We're going to say 12/31/2016. We'll just put test here, but you can, actually it's put insured, not doing good in sales. So on this screen, you have all of the transactions that are, or the installments that are currently available for financing. You can elect to select all of them by checking the box. Gold is your friend. It's checked all the rows, and then you can create a schedule, or you can opt to just finance one of the installments and the installment charge, and then do your create schedule. We're going to go ahead and opt to do all of them. You would just simply create your schedule, and you come into a screen where you have the finance details, and it outlines the finance date and the finance end date. It displays your comments, and then you get to select the number of installments in which you'd like to spread out this balance. So we're going to go ahead and choose, instead of 2 installments, they want 4 installments. Maybe that breaks it out, and you just click Create Schedule. When you click Create Schedule, Breeze will automatically set up the new devised mapping that's going to happen with these installments, and you'll see that it's broken out those 2 initial installments into 4 because I selected 4. You can, again, you have some flexibility there with how you want to specify and break out your financing. And then you would just enter, review all of the details. You can add a finance charge. There is a bit of configuration with that. And then lastly, you would save your schedule. And I do want to point out that on the billing tab, when you go to create your installment invoices, just because this is something that you haven't really needed to worry about in the past, but you will in the future, if you do elect to start financing overdue installments, that is what this process finance installments checkbox is for. I believe some of you might have this automatically defaulted to being unchecked, but if you start to do your finance installments, you'll want to make sure that you either check that box or change the default. So that's how you take care of financing installments that are overdue. In the event that you have an insured who is severely overdue with their payments to the point of canceling and having a cancellation audit and still have yet to pay, we do now have a fully comprehensive collections module. I hear ooh, I hear ah. It's pretty cool. So we've got yet another guy here. The Snowmobile Company in Florida has taken a dive and, wasn't able to really hang in. So I do want to preface that, with the collections module, it is a licensed module, fully comprehensive. We do have some configuration set up, and I probably should just give you a glimpse of that. There's a handful of preferences that are necessary to set up. There's also collections activity types, collection agents, and collection attorneys. I will show you what's kind of nifty about how we've organized collections. Notice, number one, all of your various configuration screens are in order by the word collection. And pretty cool as well is if you go into preference definitions and you just choose the collection group, you will get all of the collection settings that are required to be set up for the module. So we've tried to make the configuration really simplistic and easy to use. With that being said, we're going to go back to our guide here. And there's a couple of things that are prior criteria in order to have an eligible collection for an insured. You have to have a policy that is canceled, has been audited. There's a threshold for a number of days that you can configure. That threshold of days has to have been met for the billing due date. For instance, this guy, he's been canceled. He's been audited. We'll go look at his billing statements really quickly. We have a setting that basically states that there's a number of days past the due date that they would be eligible to come into the collections module. Now, for this scenario, I've set that date up to 0, so that this guy would come into the collections module. That is, again, a configuration for you. So those are just a couple of criteria in order to pull in the collection. Under policy, we now have, if you're licensed for collections, you'll have a collections grouping here, and this is where you basically would pull or perform all of your collections functionality. The first thing you would do is run a batch, and that would essentially identify the eligible policies for collections. You would then go to processing the collections and write-offs, so we're going to go ahead and do that really quickly. And I've already pulled in my poor snowmobile guy just to kind of make things easier. And in this initial screen, what this shows you is it shows you a batch of insureds that are eligible for collections. My guy here has a padlock. It basically says he's ready to be worked. If you unclick this, he'll come in and he'll become, you'll see the grid at the bottom. It'll show that you have the option to indicate that this outstanding balance should be collected, or you wouldn't take any action at this time. Perhaps there's some ongoing conversations. You want to do anything with this guy right this moment, or you have the option to write him off. There are some pretty savvy automation tools that will allow you to set up a tier for determining automatically when you pull them in the batch which collections would go to write-off specification and which would be automatically marked for collection. So for instance, you have some canceled audited policies that come in, but their overdue balance is $50. And you decide you don't want to waste your time trying to collect $50, you can set in configuration that anything $50 or less would automatically have this write-off setting, and anything above $50 would automatically have a collection setting. And that way you don't even have to specifically mark them. In this case, $31,472, we decided we want to collect that. So we went ahead and marked it collected, and now we're going to do ready to post. And what that does is it says, yes, I want to pull this guy into collections. Yes, I do want to collect on him. We're going to post that batch. At this point, the batch is being processed. Sorry, I tried to do a little Food Network thing and try to have some of this stuff already done for you, prepared, but it doesn't quite work that nicely for all of the steps in collections. After that point, you can search your collection, and hopefully the batch will be done here. And we'll look up snowmobile. And there he is, all ready to be worked. So we'll go ahead and look at him. And at this point, what you see is a mock-up screen of the insured, but now, or it is the insured screen, but now you have a collections option here. And you have a couple of various sub-options, the summary, payment, and transactions. Now, because we haven't worked anything with this guy, I'm going to use one that's already been worked a bit, but I just wanted to show you what happens to pull a guy in and start working on the collections. You essentially get a new menu option. From there, you can also do Find New and do collections here and just search all of your collections. And in this case, oh, bear with me. Let's take them out. If you don't put anybody, you'll get all of the collections. And so we're going to go ahead and go to A Chance to Grow. And again, it is going to take you to the Insured module where you can go and highlight the collections menu options. So the first one is going to be Summary. And on the summary page, you're going to see just real basic detail, if a payment's been received, the last date or last activity occurring on that collection. You can mark collections commissionable. If necessary, you can also specify company attorneys. You can specify collections agencies. It doesn't have to be a person in office. You can mark that you've there are ways to set some dunning letter automation, and this page will show you if that's gone out. And then you can see some highlighted 30,000-mile view activity of what's going on with this collection. And here you'll see in the grid that we have initial setup of collection, a payment plan was created for that collection, and an actual payment was received. Great. Then you've got your payment plan breakdown. And this shows you what was structurally set up. You do have flexibility with this yourselves. In this regard, it looks like this guy was given 6 payments. You can remap them. You can create a different payment plan if necessary. That's all controlled by you. I do want to mention that when you see this, essentially what's happening in the background is as soon as this candidate is actually in collections, the balance is removed from the AR tables and brought over into the collections module. So any funds that are collected go to the full balance. It's not applied to an invoice or applied to an installment. You've departed from that arena and now are in just a kind of a bulk, give me my money setup. So here you've got your payment plan, number of installments, the frequency, start date, any other basic details, interest percents, reminder. From that point on, you can go to the actual transaction screen, and much like AR and viewing invoices and viewing transactions, this kind of mimics that. Again, you've removed the balance from AR, but we still kind of give you the same structural appearance of everything. So you've got your standard filters. You can review voids, types of transactions, anything that was written off. You can write off various portions of it. And you'll see here that we've got an installment that was paid, and then the transfer of that balance that came over from the AR side. That is basically the simplistic setup of collections and what you would see and how you process it. We do have some dunning letter criteria specified in the document template arena so that you can set up 1 or 2 dunning letters. You can set up more if you need to. You can also leverage workflow to devise when those dunning letters go out. So if you want dunning letters to go out every 14 days, you can do that. So again, it's a fully comprehensive module and pretty savvy.